starting, it takes a minute or two. And I'm going to have to then, in parallel, then post a link for our YouTube as well. And pause before it gives me, there we go. Okay, we're live.
Cool. Hi everyone, welcome to another Build Working Group meeting. Today we have Michael Dawson, myself, Joao, Rich, Trott, and Rod back. So first up, I guess let's go through what we've been doing. I'll go first. So last few weeks, mostly been just looking after things that didn't work on the infra side. I modified a plugin for Targos, a job for Targos to do some actual checking before we go and run a CI, so that should save us some cycles. That's with the V8 Canary updates. I'm also looking at the AX Ansible stuff. I've been told that it is possible to get Ansible working on AX and Yum working on AX, which would be a massive help because, you know, Yum. So I'm going to be looking at that this week. That's me. Michael?
So I've been doing a few miscellaneous things. Let me think. Continue to sort of push on the Mac side of things. I guess, although that's mostly waiting on George just to fix up the scripts in terms of the last thing, which is getting C cache working. The last few times we tried it still isn't quite working. The times are longer than we'd like. Just recently fixing up the power machines so that we can actually go through and test on, like we can build and test on 4.8 and 4.9. So John Barboza helped put together the Ansible scripts to load both of those onto the machines. I then wrote a script which is in the build repo that we use from the jobs to, you know, select which version to run based on the Node version. And I've got that in test on one PPC machine in the farm. And I just need now to find time to roll that out to the rest of the machines because it seems to be working okay. Did some investigation of some failures in terms of libuv and some hosts there. And currently today I'm testing out fixes to see if if there's the pull requests that were submitted fix the code coverage breakage from last week. And then I guess otherwise just keeping on top of things. That's it for me.
I guess Joao?
Hello. So I've had the Visual Studio 2017 to the Canary in the Goldmine job. And other than that, I've been keeping an eye on our machines. So I don't know who's next.
Rich?
I am attending a working group meeting.
Sounds good. Rod?
Yeah, I've done a lot actually in the last couple of weeks. I did have a sort of minor overhaul of the Pi 1s and got them all back online and fixed up a whole bunch of stuff that was running there. And I replaced the server that was doing NFS for our cluster with one that's much more stable and isn't just dying so regularly. And things seem to be going well. As of today. Actually, I haven't checked whether everything's up still today. But lots of cleanup on that side. I've done tons of cleanup across. We've got a machine that's down. Tons of cleanup across the cluster, the whole cluster, the CI cluster, to improve stability. We've had little problems all over the place, largely related to Jenkins. There was the GitHub TLS 1 and 1.1 deprecation that happened last week that just ruined our CentOS 5 machines. So I have a pull request that's waiting for somebody to give it a thumbs up with some documentation for how I manually built a new Git for CentOS 5, which included OpenSSL and libcurl and It's pretty crazy. But they seem to be running nicely now. I'm still a bit concerned about some of the instability on the Ubuntu 12 machines, but for most part, I think they're going okay. I bought Debian 9 online, and I got rid of Fedora 23. Just instability was just annoying, so I ditched it. And the bigger thing that I wouldn't mind chatting about if we have time at the end is open an issue about what did I call it? Something about selecting which workers to run depending on node version. I tinkered with with writing a Jenkins plugin on the weekend that will do an inspection of the node source once it's checked out and find out what version of node it is, and then insert that as a parameter back to the build. So then you can filter your build matrix based on the node version. So in CI release, where it's currently in CI release, and there's a configuration script in there now that will select it sort of pairs down the matrix of what should be run based on the node version that's extracted from the source. So it's all self-contained within a single job. We don't need that sort of hierarchical job structure. It's not like I'm not saying this is the best approach we can come up with. There's alternatives that we've already tried and we're already using, like Joao's approach with the Windows machines. But we need to sort this out. We need to come up with an easier approach because our complexity is about to skyrocket with Node 10 and some of the restrictions that we are going to probably implement with regard to what versions of Linux we run on, and probably Windows and all the rest of it too. So I wouldn't mind adding that to the agenda if we have time at the end.
Yeah, I tagged it on to the end of the list.
Oh, good. Aside from that, I mean, lots of little things. You probably see me busy all over the repo. So, yeah, that'll do for me.
Cool. So let's move straight on to our agenda. First on the list is 1084, clarify email aliases. So this is one of yours, I think, Rob? No, it's mine. Okay, great.
Yeah, I was thinking that you opened that one, Joe.
So I think it's basically just a question. I'm hoping Rod/Joao can just answer this.
I thought we covered this in another issue.
I think we did, but I can't find it.
Okay, so the summary was that we do have too many aliases, it's true, but there was reason to have at least two different levels of alias. So one for more generic stuff and the other one for security related things. So there was accounts with various service providers that we have that go into some, and OpenSSL and Apple accounts and that sort of stuff. I can't remember quite the answer, but there was a reason why we needed at least two of them.
Is it for one to be like one for build and one for infra in terms of the actual, like the groups?
In terms of their application, I think it's like that. However, in practice, I think only infra people are on the receiving end of them anyway. So if we want to expand them out, then we can do that, but we've got to just be careful to keep that infra group limited.
What might be interesting, not just for these, but for all of them, is to have a README in the email repo that explains how each of them are used.
Mm.
Yeah, agreed. You mean in the build repo or the email one?
In the email repo, right? So, if there's a README that says these are the aliases and this is how they're used, is that too much extra overhead, or?
Well, we could do it in the aliases file. Maybe we should do that because that alias file is controlled by the software that's in that repo. So what we can do is we can just extend that format and add like a comment section or a note or a description or something.
Yeah, that would be even better.
Yeah, because if it's in a separate file, no one's going to change it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I was thinking that it would be harder than if it was a format that we didn't have control over. But yeah, if we can just add it in there, that would actually make the most sense. Because otherwise, it's the kind of thing like you're just saying, I'll never remember what one is versus the other, right?
Yeah, look, I think actually there are objects in there now, so we could just add description, and I think it would be ignored. I'll double check that, but and maybe I'll put a PR in with a basic thing.
Yeah, great. I think that would.
The other part of the other part of the question is I think the reason that the lists are repeated is because I don't think it'll do internal aliases, so you can't just say this one should forward to this account. So you've got to repeat it just to be sure. I've had troubles with that in the past, which is why they just repeated blocks.
Yeah, that I've seen discussed and covered in the past.
But I think Gibson, you're on infra now, and you really should be in those lists. So
yeah, that was the question. All right, so I said I'll PR something to build repo wherever it is we document the accesses you're supposed to have. Maybe
yeah,
onboarding.
Yeah, you're right.
Get that written down. That's one of the things we need to do. Yeah, it wasn't so much they didn't have access now. It's more just wasn't sure who's supposed to have access. Okay. So
yeah, I think my vote would be let's just say infra people go on those lists because it's their infra accounts. They're to access infra things.
Sounds good. Okay, I'll do a PR with docs if you do a PR with email, and then I think that should cover it both.
Yeah.
Okay, so I added a comment saying Rod is going to PR comments into the email A-list file to doc how they are used. Is that good enough to close?
No, I think we also need to PR something that documents the infra admins should add themselves to the to that as well. So if you leave that open, just probably assign it to me, and I'll do that half.
Doc on how? Okay. So I will comment that. I'm going to then take off TSC agenda though.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's move on. The next one is 1070. Security, please pay careful attention to code running through CI, which this one is Rod's. So is there anything to, let's see. I'm not sure what there is to discuss here. Rod, I think we're going to PR a change to Fedora, according to Michael's last comment.
Oh, right, yes. Hang on. Just let me find that issue. That's why it's still on there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Leave that with me.
But I think John originally added it so we could discuss removing these machines. But I think we already discussed that in another issue, didn't we? Look at his last comment.
Yes. Yeah. It's a tricky one because we can't ditch CentOS 5 even if we wanted to.
But I think for Fedora, you made a proposal. I think it was agreed, so you're just going to PR that in and then remove the Fedora ones, right?
Oh, that's right. And I was trying to get Canonical to give us a subscription, and I couldn't get a response from them. But I have a new contact at Canonical now that I'm going to draft an email right now so I remember.
Okay. So,
okay, let's move on.
Yeah, so it sounds like I'm going to assign this to Rod, take off the agenda tag. It should stay open until that bit's done, but it's not something we need to discuss. Okay, the next one I think requires George, OSX info walkthrough. So,
yeah, I could do a bit of a job, but I haven't prepared, and so unless people want to do that sooner than later, we can just defer to a time we can get George and maybe a larger group too.
Sounds good. Okay, so the next one is use foundation.
Sorry, I've got one comment on that.
Okay.
Which is sorry, I don't know if I don't think the thread was responded to, but there's one of the Mac Stadium Macs is offline. It's been a lot.
Yeah, I did comment. The 10.8 we decided not to actually put 10.8 and 10.9 into our infra at all. We're not going to add them to our jobs anyway. There was a specific issue that was reported on NAPI on 10.8, so we actually disabled that one to let Anisha use it for investigation. I've since added a link in the comment to that issue, so it's clear what's going on.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, we still need to, the main next step is fix up the C cache, turn on the 11 12s because we have 10s already on. So turn on 11 12s. Once we get those on, I think the next priority would be to make some 13s, get them in. And then, you know, the 10 8s and 10 9s, it may still be useful to keep those machines around, but I guess we could probably take them out of the CI itself since we're not going to use them for the regular regression jobs.
Yeah.
But I haven't really made that a top priority kind of thing. The next thing I'd really just want to get is get the 10 and the 11 and 12s in.
Why would we keep the 10 8s and 10 9s? Couldn't we just repurpose them as, you know?
In case we want to, you know, like this case in NAPI, somebody said, hey, I'm having a problem on 10.8. If we have a machine that we can let people use to investigate those things.
Okay.
I mean, I agree if we need, like right now we have more resources than we need, right? So if we're constrained, they'd be the first to go, but I'm just not rushing to delete them because we have them and they might be useful.
Fair enough.
I'd like to get a release machine in there or two, if we haven't done that already.
Yes, that would be, you know, I think that's probably maybe the next thing we want to do after we get the Ccache working.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to that walkthrough, and then maybe I can participate in helping getting release machine ready.
Sure, and maybe, you know, if you have time to do that, we might just schedule that another time rather than waiting to get it in. Because I don't think, you know, everything looks very familiar with what we talked about at the very beginning in terms of the firewalls and all that kind of stuff. We didn't go very far from that, so it'll all look familiar to you anyway.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a matter of making it stick inside your head because it's...
Yeah, exactly. So I've probably forgotten half of it already, but we can go through the doc. I did document it in the private infra repo. Well, in our private, like in our secrets repo, in the doc that we created in there. I don't know that all that needs to be private, but I put it in there just to start. And so, yeah, if you want to get started, maybe it's just we should just go through it together, and then, you know, you can see if there's any gaps in terms of what you need to know to move forward.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So let's move on. So the next one is 1154.
Right. So I added this one late today. So I know people probably haven't had too much time to discuss there, but it was brought up in the past about, you know, should we be asking for foundation resources on the build front? You know, I think the discussion is centered around, it's difficult for the volunteers to be responsive enough to, you know, if there's CI issues going on and it's hard to get a hold of people because they're volunteers, maybe somebody who was actually being paid to work on this would be able to do a better job. And we also don't seem to be, you know, getting to all the things we'd like to get to. So this is to say, should we consider this? It does seem like, you know, having talked to Mark, there's a possibility of doing something. We'd need to figure out what it is we would want that to be. You know, first, do we want to do that? And if we did, what would we want it to look like?
So I'm probably going to be predictable here. My response is no, I wouldn't support this unless it was very limited or targeted. This is an example, a good example of a slippery slope. That once the foundation starts paying somebody or people to do work, then the foundation is going to end up having to pay for more and more of it. And it's the same with paying for other resources as well, because fewer people will show up to contribute because somebody else is doing it and is paid to do it. My suggestion on this would be, before we can consider going this route, I think there are things we can fix up with regard to contribution from outsiders. And there's a thread going on in GitHub right now about documenting how to get into the build stuff. So Gibson, you presented a talk at whatever was the last conference, and somebody was passionate about getting involved and they just couldn't figure out how. And I think we need to fix that up. It's just unclear because I think we've got fewer people right now amongst the previous intake who are available to show up, just help fix machines. Like, there's just really not many people, but it's the kind of thing that there's a lot of people out there that could do and would be interested in doing it. We just haven't made it known that we want this kind of help, and B, it's not obvious how to do this kind of thing, how to get involved. And I think we could make that, we should focus on getting more contributors at the lower end, and then raising them up through the process to help give them more and more responsibility as they show up.
I guess we need to come up with, I think, a concrete plan, because we've seen, I think, enough like issues open saying, hey, this isn't working or that isn't working. And I don't know. Go ahead.
Perhaps as a first step, as a very simple first step, we could open an issue in the build repo saying, which sounds like maybe it's this issue already, the one that that you're talking about. But open an issue in the build repo that says we need more members on the build working group. We're short-staffed. We need more volunteers, and mention Node.js /collaborators, so that all 100 whatever people who have the commit bit, there's probably. Well, I don't know if there's probably, but it seems likely that there's 2 or 3 people in that group who maybe even aren't very active code contributors, but would have the skills and the availability to, babysit some Linux boxes and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And we're pretty free with giving out that key, or we have been in historically anyway, giving out the test key access. Yeah, it's release and infra that we protect a bit more carefully. But if you want to show up and help administer machines,
right? I mean, the main thing is just finding, I suspect this may be a demand side or a supply side, but basically where we just, we're maybe just people don't know that they can raise their hand and say, oh yeah, I'd like to do that.
Well, I think that goes along with this other issue of it's just not clear how people do that and what they can contribute. Because we're so scattered and each of us is focusing on our own little areas and busily doing our own thing, that we just lost sight of the fact that this thing has become really obscure and it's not clear, it's opaque about what you can do and how you get involved. And so we could just go ahead and put a call out and then say, if it's not clear, please let us know, or we could start investing in documentation or our README or something to make that.
Or if you find one person who volunteers, as you onboard them, document everything.
Sure. So there's another item here that I wanted to raise, which is my fear is that the reason this is coming up is because we as a project have become a little bit spoiled in the breadth of our infrastructure and the complexity of it. And I'm wondering if the signs are that we are overstretched, then maybe the answer is not to say we need to start paying for people so we can keep it going at that level, but to say maybe we need to scale back on our complexity because we've bitten off more than we can chew. Because there's no doubt we've got one of the most sophisticated, if not the most sophisticated, infrastructure projects of any open source project out there. And it's staggering how broad this thing is and how much resources we're managing. And maybe that's our problem. And maybe we're being too good.
I would certainly support. I would certainly be in favor of supporting fewer things in CI, but making them more rock solid. I would love to keep the breadth of support that we have now, but if the choice is between having a permanently read CI, which is pretty much what we have right now, or having a CI that we can trust the results of to the extent of what they test, I would definitely prefer the latter. I also want to just get one other thing out there because somebody should just say it, and we don't actually have to address it today. But one potential upside of paying someone, although I don't know if it outweighs all the downsides, but one potential upside is that it does, sort of like, raises, I mean, Michael kind of implied this, but it raises the possibility of bringing someone on board who is not sort of just like, slicing off 5% of their time, or even 20% of the time or whatever, but somebody who's, focused on this stuff. And it also also just raises the possibility of maybe someone who would be good and effective and interested, but not necessarily has the privilege to, I'm going to donate X amount of my time, at work or nights and weekends, to this project. I know some of us are paid to work on Node, but I don't think most of us are. Well, I guess most of us here today, I guess, are, at least 3 of us, it looks like. But in the build working group at large, I don't think that's true. So just putting that out there, but that doesn't outweigh the downsides necessarily, but worth considering.
I understand that's at the core of the argument. I do understand that, and I understand if people feel that way. And I know Miles gets frustrated. I understand that. I understand why he gets frustrated, and it must be frustrating for somebody like him who is so actively involved in producing releases and all that stuff. When things break, it's just frustrating, and then trying to find someone. I get it. The way I see it playing out, this happens with every community. When you start formalizing and creating a infrastructure that can start hiring and paying people, volunteers drop out, and because for one, they say, oh well, someone else that person's paid to do it, so it's their job. So why would I need to contribute their time? You just lump it on them because it's easier. But there's also the other thing of, well, how come they're getting paid to do the same work that I would volunteer to do? And so there really is a slippery slope thing where if we're going to pay someone, we have to be prepared for the fact that we are stuck with paying for them. And to be honest, I'm actually not that confident that the foundation is going to hold on to its financial resources in the long term, at least. I see challenges with maintaining membership at the current level. So we've got to be prepared for that kind of cost outlay as a foundation.
I think the one argument is that, I agree 100% that in general, it's not the kind of thing you want to do. I can see that in the case of build, it's a little bit of a different from most of what else is going on, in that it's less well suited to sort of the asynchronous get to it when you have time to kind of work than everything else, right? So I could see at least an argument for how you could scope it to being like, this is not a trend that is going to follow anywhere else. It's just very tightly focused in this one area.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see that something that couldn't be solved by either trimming scope or expanding the breadth of the people that contribute. So I would personally advocate for trying those things first.
So I don't think we're likely to come to a resolution, and even if we do, there's only 5 of us here, and
sure.
There's 16 people in the build working group. So any conversation we have, we're just going to have to repeat or have in a place written down. So I kind of wonder if what we really want to do is agree that putting out a call and mentioning it, maybe even going beyond mentioning collaborators and mentioned /members. Or collaborators and members, which will reach hundreds of people.
Members still maintained as the exhaustive list?
No, I'm. In fact, it's on my to-do list to make all the active teams a sub-team of members and then get rid of all the members. So unfortunately, doing that notifies people that they've been removed from the members team. Doesn't explain to them that they're actually still on it. So that's kind of slowed me down because I now need to contact every single person and let them know not to panic.
Right.
So that's annoying. But that's a whole other thing. Yeah. It's not
just mention them before you delete it.
It does have hundreds of people, and I did remove people recently, people who were in members and not in any other team. So anyone who's in members should, maybe there a few more have crept in the last couple of weeks, but should be on at least one other team. You asked something, Michael. Sorry, what was it?
Could you just mention them before you delete it, saying, "Hey, I'm about to move you. You're not being deleted," so they'd get 2 emails.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I tried that, and
No.
people get the notification that they've been removed, and they don't necessarily get email notifications from @mentions. So
Right, okay.
people still open issues, which is not the end of the world. Anyway, this is not an issue for the build working group. This is something for me to figure out. So I'll work on it. But it's going.
No, I think your original question: should we do a call? I think yes, but I think we should then have a very concrete. So somebody says, "Hey, I'm volunteering." What do we do? We need to have a very quick path to, like, do we just say, great, you have the test key. Here's, whenever you see a machine get in trouble, jump in. Or should we say that? And, oh, by the way, here's a mentor, like pick one of us and say, well,
there is an
Michael
onboarding
Gibson,
doc, is there not?
There is.
Well, Joe, I mean,
enough.
Johan at least created one if no one else did. Yeah, there's an onboarding doc. So maybe follow that doc. It's pretty short.
We have an onboarding doc. I didn't know that.
I think the problem is
it doesn't have any details.
It doesn't tell you what kind of stuff, like the build working group is about mostly fixing stuff and improvements, right? It doesn't really point you. It's kind of like, great, now if something breaks, you can jump in. But you really need the hands-on experience with someone else, I find.
Yeah.
So maybe a combination of mentoring and just like good first issue, like more issues, sort of like, hey, maybe a good one might be just migrating some of the Jenkins configs. That's a big bunch of work that needs doing. Cutting out the scripts, putting them in the Git repo, running them from the Git repo. I think some of them have been done, but it's just like grunt work. But
that's almost a different kind of work. Like that's, because I guess we were talking about, problems with the infrastructure real time. So, okay, stuff is broken, not working.
That's true, but I'd say most of the problems you have in our infrastructure are problems that we should be able to fix with, we should be able to automate the fixes of. And the reason we don't automate it is because we're too busy bailing out water, and manually fix. I mean, there are some things like the pipes that have.
Yeah, so that's a fundamental thing, is like, because as soon as you start to say, hey, you can work on all these longer term things, you're now expecting a bigger commitment or a different commitment from people who maybe there's a bunch of people. I thought we were going down like maybe there's a bunch of people who know Linux, like to keep machines healthy, so let's just pull them in, right? And I don't want to discourage them by saying, oh, by the way, now you got to go learn something else that maybe wasn't fixing part of that.
Then you're getting people to just kind of like go for it on the machines.
I mean, not saying don't. Everybody's free to do all the other stuff. Just don't want it to be sort of the prereq, because.
Oh, I'm not saying we should force people to do it. I'm saying we should provide like here are good first issues you can take if you want, because I think people will be like, well, I've got access, now what do I do?
Right. Yeah, no, if we have a good list, that would be good too.
Yeah, and if it's okay, there's this bug with every third build, there's a lock file that gets left behind on this machine, and it could be fixed by X, Y, Z. That would be great. It doesn't have to be like Ansible Jenkins type tasks. But I think there are two problems here, right? One is just the continual tests. Every day we run a test and a release, and if they go red, then it's a pain. And then there's the specific, someone's doing a release of Node and they need it to work, reliably, and they need to get a build out. And that's obviously what Miles and I hit. So I wonder if they're the same, like they're kind of two different things, right? One is keeping it green in general, and one is being able to be on hand to fix things when there's a release going out. Yeah. So maybe just having someone say, okay, I can be around when there's a release or doing a release, on whichever 1 day a month or 2 days a month might be useful.
Yeah, having some coordination on that front might make sense.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is just, it should be easier for people like Miles who are, involved but not running it to just fix the things that come up, right? Ideally, we should be able to provide automation or help with that stuff.
Well, I mean, Miles does have test access, but I think the problem there is that a lot of the problems to be solved are just like, this machine needs a reboot, or you need to kill Jenkins and restart that, or clean out the build directory, or do something like that. It's like, it's relatively trivial Linux administration tasks, but I think a lot of our collaborators are just not confident with A, those kinds of tasks, and B, they're not confident enough to just wade in and start rebooting or killing stuff.
I agree.
And maybe we just need to. Maybe documentation would help. Just give people the confidence to say, hey, this infrastructure, if it's not working, give it a kick in the butt. Do what you think you need doing to make it work again. It's not critical infrastructure.
So
it doesn't sound very good. But
speaking for myself, I mean, I have experience as a systems administrator, and I still don't want, I just feel like, oh, if I go and I reboot this machine, I have no idea if it's going to reconnect to Jenkins or not. I have no idea if there's other things I'll need to do. I have no idea then if the queue will get backed up and all that sort of thing. And maybe I should just not worry about it and just, go ahead and reboot a machine and see what happens.
Well, I think you should feel pretty free on the Linux machines to do that kind of thing. The IBM machines, I just defer to those guys.
Hey, Michael, I think Joy just joined. Can you promote her?
Yep. Everybody should be able to, because I promoted you all to co-host, but I will go ahead and do it.
I promoted.
Oh, you already did. Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
How do you change? I think I promoted her as a panelist. Is that?
And then you can go to more. So I just do more co-host. So there she is now.
I see.
Because that's what you need to be able to turn on your video, I think. Hello.
Hi, Joy.
I missed on my schedule and sorry.
Yeah.
Go on.
We're talking about how to get more people involved in administering the CI machines and get people who maybe know a thing or two but don't feel like total experts to not be afraid to wade in and just start doing things. I think that's kind of where we're at in this conversation. Is that correct, Rod and Michael and Gibson and Joel?
Sounds right.
Yeah, I wonder, just from your last comment, Rich, I wonder whether that's a case that we're not doing a good job on mentoring, and we need to offer mentorship faculties. Because I'd be happy to, if somebody is willing to go in there and to start rebooting and fixing machines, I'd be happy to describe the kinds of things that I do on a regular basis to get machines working again. When I see certain kinds of errors, what I try and do. Some of that stuff is hard to document because I'm not willing to commit to saying this kind of error means this thing. It's like, if that kind of error comes up, then I sort of try tinkering in this area. But I'd be happy to spend time with people on that. So maybe we just need to formalize some mentoring.
Maybe. Johan mentored me a little bit, but it was a long time ago. And I think he may have assumed that I was more comfortable than I really was. And I think that may be a pitfall in mentoring in this working group, is that just not realizing that people are gonna, a good systems administrator is trained to be timid.
Don't.
Timid with connection, or at least have like a nervous cat reaction. They're like, ooh, I don't know if I really want to do this. That's you don't want to. That's what you want. So.
For me, I guess this comes back to Ansible, right? If you are confident that the Ansible thing can spin up a new machine in X minutes, then you can let someone like run amok on a test machine, and it doesn't matter because you can just run a script, run a command, and start again.
There's lots of caveats that.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say it doesn't matter.
It's like, okay, that's fine, but they don't run amok on the CentOS 5 machines because we can't get them back again.
Right.
We can't provision those ones again.
That's what I mean. So just a list of that's the problem, right? I don't know which machines that I can or I can't, so I can't do it on any.
Right.
You could say, here's a subset where you can, where you can be relatively free. You can reboot them. And
sure.
The top 5 things I tend to do: restart the Jenkins slave, reboot them, whatever else, clean up the workspace. Like, obviously it depends on the thing, but there's kind of a few basic things, and then people could say, well, none of those work.
Okay. And maybe what we need is a troubleshooting script. Like, here's a markdown document. Go find the operating system that you're working on, and is this a symptom? Then try this, and it can just be a living document that, like, as incidents occur, we put in, what was done, and because like we've been talking about, like, how do we track incidents and also think, because like sometimes I report them in IRC, sometimes we open a ticket, sometimes, blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe the place to track them is in a troubleshooting document. It won't track them over time, but it will at least like produce a document of, shared knowledge and agreed upon procedures for dealing with stuff.
Yeah. I like the idea.
Was a wiki page better to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah. I don't know.
Just whatever it is, pick one place. I don't even care where it is. Just pick one place. I don't want to go to documents. Just one.
I kind of feel though that you need an issue. If something's broken, don't you need an issue in case like unless you're going to actually fix it?
The issue tracker is so overloaded. It has like 200 or something open issues that like half of them are probably duplicates or
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
the thing is at least there like I go and look periodically.
Psychologically, it makes it feel like futility to open an issue. That's why it matters.
But like for me, it helps. For all the IBM platforms, if there's an issue open there, I may not see it today, but I will see it within a few days and be able to get it. Whereas if it's in a doc, I have to look every day.
Oh, it wouldn't be in a doc. No. I mean, like if you're reporting a problem, you should either, let's at least not create a new place to report. You shouldn't report problems in the troubleshooting doc. That's where you report solutions.
Yeah. Okay.
How about this? A troubleshooting doc that so one of the problems we have with doing stuff in Git is the gating required, the pull request approval and stuff. I would be happy to say if we had a troubleshooting doc that you shouldn't need to go through a whole pull request approval process. Just push to it.
You can edit it. You can edit it in the GitHub interface and not even have to just click edit, type, click save, click commit to branch. You're done.
Just say you can. People can. I mean, instead of raising an issue, as Michael says, a new thing comes up. There's a fix for this. I want a PR. Like I want to push. You can directly push it, or just raise a PR and merge it directly, and then it's like everyone gets a notification and can go see that something went wrong.
Sure.
And then, I agree with removing the barriers. I would say I think some people find it easier just to raise a PR to the web interface and just merge immediately than because you can do that all.
Yeah, you need the PR on the doc, right?
Yeah.
No, I like that idea because that seems like as easy to edit as a wiki, yet you have the traceability. So if somebody says, feel free to run rm-rf star, you can find out who in the end, right?
I guess the other thing is you almost want, so something like Joey's Node 4 utils, like that's had a big effect, I think, on the things people are comfortable doing. Because you run a command and it's documented and you know what it's going to do. And if it doesn't work, then okay, you have to go try something else. But you can be a lot more confident when you're running like a known thing. Whereas even the Ansible stuff, it's a big long Ansible playbook this, limit machine, X, Y, Z. It's kind of hard, I think, for people to get started with that unless you've already done a few, in which case. Yeah. So maybe there's something there.
Rich, what's the top thing that you think causes non-green CI that we might help fix by having new volunteers help out with?
Well, right now the top thing is that we have a Windows test that always fails, so it's perma yellow. But putting that aside, I don't know. I haven't been paying attention the last week or so. Lots of times it's just on the Raspberry Pis, it's the NFS going south. A lot of times it's a git index.lock file that just is somehow left behind. A lot of times there's just a stalled process that nothing can kill. I don't know what the most common is. I'd have to start keeping track, which would involve.
I think I can tell you because I have been keeping track recently. We've had a lot of trouble with the Jenkins communication thing. Just having errors communicating, like it just breaks down and disconnects. And I have not been able to find a solution to that. The best thing I can do is go in, update slave.jar, which I'm constantly doing, and restarting the Jenkins worker.
Is that on Windows or Unix?
It's mainly on Linux.
Okay.
I don't see that much on Windows, and I think, actually, I don't know why.
Updating slave.jar, what does that fix? Like, is because you think it's corrupted, or because we get a newer version that might work better?
We get a newer version. So some of I've been finding slave.jars that are from 2014 on some of our machines. Occasionally, I'll go in and be surprised that I haven't touched that machine in a long enough time. But it's slave.jar has really basic stuff in it, like how to communicate via JNLP, and so. You'll notice I don't know if the admins on Jenkins have noticed there's an error, a warning about JNLP versions.
Yep.
It's because some of our slave.jars only support JNLP2, but JNLP4 is out, and that's what the latest one should be using. So we could actually tell which ones have old ones by turning off that old support. I'm just a bit loath to do that because I don't want to have to go around fixing everything. But I think that improves the ability for the current version of Jenkins to communicate with the slaves and get the right things done. But that's just one of the things I do, and restarting Jenkins process. And yeah, the other thing that's currently cropping up, and there's an issue in the main repo where this discussion is happening, is there's some tests on Linux that are dying without good stack traces, or without any stack trace. They're just dying. And I don't know what to make of that one. That one seems to be pretty common. And then the third thing is this makefile problem with the standard out write error, which and both of those two things, I think, well, at least the last one is something that needs to be solved on the Node side, Node repo, Node makefile probably. The other one I'm suspecting has to do with zombie processes that need killing, or machine needs restarting if they can't be destroyed, and that would be a simple matter for someone to hop in and check out. Are there any processes running on this machine? Should there be? Do something about it. That would be an easy thing for a new person to participate in.
It sounds like a lot of those could be easy though, right? Like reinstalling. I know it's not glamorous, but if you do one or two, reinstalling the slave.jar and restarting the Jenkins instance, that's kind of one of the classic things you have to do to fix Jenkins problems. And maybe even some of the other stuff, just like mentoring on some of that would be really useful, or just working together on it. Multiple people working together kind of feels a lot more confident than just trying to fix things on machines by yourself, and just having someone else to safety, sanity check you. Maybe even like a broadcast, like, hey, Rod's going to go have a look at XYZ on the pies. If you want to have a look, we can kind of do it collaboratively or discuss as we go.
I do tend to drop a lot of notes in IRC when I'm doing stuff, just say what I've done. There doesn't seem to be much interaction on there about those things. I don't know if a broadcast will get any more.
No, the Raspberry Pis, can anybody go in and fix most of those things?
They should be able to. There has been a problem because of that host that was running NFS. It also ran the jump host.
Right.
And with that machine locking up, that jump host wouldn't be available. But now...
Yeah, I kind of figured you had to be involved in most of those, but... It should be much more stable now. So if there's problems with them, then they are fixable. But I still need to be involved a lot of time, because it's things like SD cards that die. Right, that's what I was. We can't go change those SD cards.
And because I'm regularly pulling machines that repeatedly fail, I'll pull them out and do a read-write test on the SD card and then re-provision the entire thing. I'm the only one that can do that. But just simple things like this machine is it's got that Jenkins error that shows up occasionally. Well, restart it. Just go in and reboot the machine. Other people can do that. That should be fine.
But not on the CentOS 5 machines, because we can't get them back. Oh wait.
Well, with CentOS 5, just don't do anything at the system level without talking to someone else first. Don't go. You can go cleaning up the workspace and rebooting and stuff, but just
yeah.
So we started this, and I know our time is close to the end. So we started this making a call. It sounds like there's some very specific things we can sort of document to get people to do. I'll be interested to see how many people answer the call. I mean, that's our first step. If we get enough people we can maybe make some progress on, with these basic steps to say, well, these are the key things. We want to make sure that you're comfortable going in and doing these as a first step. And if we get enough people, maybe that solves the problem. But if we don't get people, then we can have a discussion of what else we do.
I have to go right now, so thanks for a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later.
Yeah. Maybe nothing to just be to get Miles and people to just make a note of all the things that they have problems with. Okay, you've raised an issue. Is it just that? Is it that the issue is hard to fix, or are there other things that we're seeing that haven't been documented and haven't been looked at?
Yeah, I think that, yes, capturing the list of things we think are the pain points would be good.
I would like to see, and maybe this is for Miles and also probably also Rich, because he's also very present. So people that are becoming frustrated with our work, I'd like to see them document the pain points in a comprehensive form, so that, because maybe we're blind to some of these things that they're concerned about. And maybe they're trivially fixed, or maybe there is a case for doing something more structural to the way we work. But just, vague notions of, oh, you're not responsive enough, I don't think help. We need more, it's not proof, but more, we need to understand what the problems really are.
Yeah, and I don't want to put any words into people's mouth. I said that just in terms of, having seen some issues which, took a while to get responses to, that kind of stuff. Anyway.
I think, I mean, I've been carrying a lot of the burden of maintaining a lot of the infrastructure. And so when I have periods of downtime, either I'm busy with other things or I'm just preoccupied, I know that becomes noticeable because the load's not picked up. And part of that, I think, is probably my fault for not doing that mentoring or raising other people up or encouraging other people to take ownership. Because it's probably like people probably have the perception that I have ownership of a lot of this stuff and don't go touching it because Rod might be doing something on there, or the status might be, in flux.
I think I'm concerned that it's possibly a combination of things like that. That's, maybe we can probably do more to get more, but I'm also not sure it's the kind of work that we'll find a huge number of people really wanting to do.
Yeah, I really think we might be surprised, because historically we've had a lot of people show up and they don't hang around for a long time. Either they move on, but they show up with a burst of energy, and that helps. There has been a pattern that's kind of amusing, where people use build as a gateway to more Node stuff, and they start and build, and then they end up contributing in bigger ways elsewhere, and they move on. There's a few notable people that are in that category.
So I definitely think that will hopefully never change. I just look at, the people we have today are all, as we were saying before, are mostly people who in some way have some time, some of their professional time where they can invest in this, right?
Right.
And that may be a reflection of...
But if you think about it, I mean, John Moss has been one of the most active contributors to Build. And he's not, he's...
Yeah. Not to say that we won't get great contributors who do it on their own time as well.
But I think what I'm saying is that burst of energy is really helpful to clean up some of the sort of stuff that ends up on the backlog, which then means that other people can be more available to fix other things.
Yeah.
I mean, if everything's ticking over nicely, then there are only a few problems that need to be looked at last minute. But if everything's going wrong, then yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously he's made a great contribution. I guess we can make a call, see if we can drum up more support and stuff. I just have a concern that it's not going to be, and maybe hopefully I'm wrong, that it's just not the kind of stuff that people will be lining up to do. That's all.
It's not glamorous, but it can be really fun. I think a lot of people know that. I started off. This is where I started off contributing to Node Core, really, and it's where
I agree. Yeah, it can be quite fun. It's just sort of if you've got 5% of your time or 10% of your time, I don't know if it'll be the one people choose. But
it takes too much. It takes a lot of time to get into it, which is why it's hard for people to take that get over that sort of learning curve and actually start contributing. Whereas,
again, maybe that's the case for mentorship.
Yeah, I guess we were back to the making a call. I think we should have a direct path. Like, if people say yes and they're collaborators, do we just say, here's your test key and here's the name of somebody who's going to basically, if you have questions, ping this person, or one or more, as opposed to, we could say ping any one of us, which we should say as well, but here's somebody who's actually going to help you become effective or whatever.
we could. I mean, we could open out even more by. I still haven't got around to that. If you have to say that you don't automatically get this test team, we give you that separately, because then we could say, if you're not, if we don't know who you are, you can be a part of the build working group and do some stuff and watch and learn, and we get to know and trust you without getting that. And then we give the test key to, maybe we say if you're a collaborator, you already get the key, and then if you're not, then wait a few weeks. Either way.
Just was thinking, what are we comfortable with doing to accelerate getting to the point where people are like, yeah, hey, I'm going to log on to this machine and fix one of these known issues because, I know that I can and know how to do it.
Yeah.
I think mentoring, and maybe even like just do a screen recording, if there's something simple that you can just say here. I know it's obvious if you've done it, but just here's how I SSH onto the machine. Here's what I did. I became Node.js, and then I did this, that, and the other. Like, just having that written down / video might be even easier, right, than actually writing out notes. Might be useful. Anyway, so should we move on? I think we know what the next steps are. So we're kind of out of time. So I guess if people want to drop off, they can. But it'd be good to have a quick discussion of the last one, which is Rod's PR 1153.
Yep.
So yeah, should we say that that's optional? And if you'd like to, we're at time, so if you can't continue, that's fine. In fact, Rod, can you continue?
I'm just checking. I thought my next meeting was cancelled, but 8th of March. No, okay, this week. No, I have to go. I'm late.
Okay.
Meeting that I should have been in.
Right. Well, let's postpone that till next time.
Let's do it on GitHub and yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay. Talk to you guys all later. Bye.
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 I'm going to stop the stream.